I can't even. I don't even have words. I literally have no words.
But right now, this entire contract proves, and the contracts that Jim Rutherford and Patrick Allvin have signed from day one have proved they're out of touch with what reality is with the Vancouver Canucks. We are a bottom 10 team that are acting like we're a top 5 team. What I go like,
you can't. To me, Elias Pettersson, you literally can't trade everyone. That's such a stupid concept. That to me, so many fans are like, "Oh, we have to trade everybody, trade the coach,
So 3 minutes ago, you rewind. Maybe this team's not good enough. How do you fix this team then if you're going to keep re-signing these core players?
Well, there never is. You and I have discussed this so many times. The CFL is their own worst enemy.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the April 20th, the 420 edition of the Hughes Sports Podcast. I am, of course, your host, Jake Hughes, and usually alongside me is the old man, Kevin Hughes. However, he is not feeling good today, so you get me for the whole show, but it's just going to be just me for the next 30 minutes or so. We're going to talk about all sorts of different things, including the Amar Doman SFU situation. Canucks sign a interesting name. And then in the later half of the show, we're going to welcome Connor Doyle. You might know him from Twitter at Lords of the Rinks. He is also a contributor where I am a contributor at InsideTheRink.com. And we're going to discuss the LA Kings and Edmonton Oilers series because I think it's something interesting, and it's a series that the Canucks fans, in my opinion, should be looking towards at what we could do in the near future. But before we jump into it, HughesSports.ca. Every week we post at least one, sometimes 2 articles a week, looking back at some of the CFL stuff, editorials. You get all of our podcasts there, as well as on, watching us live here on YouTube and on the podcasts that podcast players, Google Podcasts, Spotify, iTunes, all those stuff. And please do, if you have an ability, leave a comment, hit that like button, subscribe, follow us. If you're watching live right now, drop your name into the chat where you're watching from. I'll give you a shout out because I'm running things by myself right now, and we're going to go wherever I want to. So let's start here with Amar Doman calling out SFU, which, I mean, every week for the last probably 4 weeks, we've talked about this on the show. And when you think the story is going to come to an end, it doesn't. So to catch everyone up, if you haven't watched in the past, SFU, Simon Fraser University, out of the beautiful British Columbia, they announced that they would be canceling effective immediately their football program. And this due to the fact that they were being removed from the NC2A Div 2 program at the end of the 2023 season. So they just decided to end their program prematurely, citing that there was challenges to find a conference to play in once the 2023 season is over, which I find absurd because University West, the Canadian equivalent to NCAA for the Western provinces, came out and said, "You guys never even discussed things with us. We never had a conversation." So it's kind of absurd. They're not really giving any information why. The SFU football players alumni filed an injunction in a BC Supreme Court, basically trying to stop the program from shutting down. Amar Doman, who is the owner of BC Lions, he has been pretty vocal about this, basically saying if it's a check that needs to be written, you need to let us know, and there's basically a blank check written for you. And the fact that SFU hasn't asked him for it, I don't think really sat well with Mr. Doman. And I don't blame him. This was a guy who literally opened up his checkbook and said, I'm writing you a blank check. And nothing ever said it. No one ever said anything. There might be behind the scenes conversations, but you haven't seen anything at all yet. The recent announcement is that the Simon Fraser University Football Alumni Association or Society, SFU FAS, super long abbreviation. Why can't we just get something like easier? They're holding a 1 day for SFU football. The goal of the day is to get 1,000 people to donate to the cause of keeping the SFU football program open. According to the news release, Doman and other community leaders will match donations up to a maximum of $500,000 in total contributions. They will match those contributions for every 100 people who donate. I'm going to say that again because it's very confusing. They're not matching. If I donated $1,000, they're not matching $1,000. They're matching for every 100 people that donate. So if we get 100 people who donate $2 each, because that's all we can afford, they're still matching, and we get 1,000 people to donate $2 each. That's only $2,000. But Doman and the community leaders around this situation is going to be able to kick in $500,000, which I think is great. It's something that needs, because a lot of these students have been practicing. They don't have anything to fall back on. There's a lot of people who have full ride scholarships based off of their only skill that they have this far throughout life, and that's football. And that's unfair. Not all of them. There's going to be lots of them that it was football or die. They had no other thing to fall back on, and they were an athlete student, not a student athlete, which is a conversation that we can definitely have at another time. But to me, the fact that SFU continues to remain silent on this, they're not engaging the public, they're not engaging anything. What are we to believe about SFU? Because when the situation first came about, I said, well, maybe this is just a marketing ploy. Maybe this is just, look at us, we're talking about SFU everywhere in the sports scene in the Lower Mainland, not just the Lower Mainland, across BC. You're getting talked about. And instead of reaching out and saying, hey, look, we understand it's frustrating, and Amar Doman, we'd love to have a conversation. We want to have a conversation. They're just radio silence. There's not a single thing that SFU has done to prove that they care about their football community. So raising the money is well and all, and I think it's a great way to get people to realize the cause and discuss things. Is it the best thing that we can be doing? Because the leaders at SFU, the chairperson, the presidents, the board members clearly do not care about a time-honored tradition of SFU. It's absurd to me because there's very few opportunities for Canadians in sports to have an edge. And SFU was that edge. They were the only NCAA school in Canada ever. And now, because it's going to be difficult to find a new division to play in, they're just throwing up the white flag. It's a spit in the face to every single alumnus, every single current player, and every single player who's watched this team, because they're saying they don't care. It's a slap in the face. And honestly, if I'm an SFU student, if I am an SFU alum, I am not, clearly, there would be hell to pay. There would be letters being written. There would be like this Amar Doman doing the fundraiser is great and all, and it's bringing awareness, but there needs to be more done. The facts, and I'm sure we'll learn more about this injunction in the courts, but when was the SFU season supposed to start? let's just take a look at this. They still have. So this was so hastily done that they still have their roster up for the 2023 football team on their website. So last year they started in September. So we're in April. We have May. We're near the end of April. So we got May, June, July, August, September. We got 5 months. 5 months to get this figured out. Now, I know courts are going to work quickly to get this through because of the time restraint. But there needs to be a solution to this because it's absurd. It's absurd to me that they they have their website up still. They have their roster. They have their schedule, like their schedule from last year. They have everything up. They have their coaching staff. These guys don't have jobs anymore because someone, I don't know if it's the owners, the board that don't care about football, but they're showing you that they don't care about football. Hello, old man. No, I am only by myself for the next 20 minutes or so. You'll be hearing me ramble on. We will be joined. I will be joined. The show will be joined by a gentleman named Connor Doyle. He is going to be discussing the Edmonton Oilers and the LA Kings broadcast series that's tied at 2 and 2 very different games. So I'm excited to talk about that. We're just digging into the SFU debacle it's been a month now, I think, that we've been talking about this. And there's just every week there's more news about it. And none of the news is from SFU. So it's absurd to me that they are blatantly looking at fans of football, fans of the college, the alumni, the players that were supposed to go there and slapping them in the face. It's absurd. It's absurd to me. Once there is a link, we will share out the link for the 1 day for SFU football. Again, if there's 1,000 people who donates, Amar Doman and other business leaders from around BC will be donating and matching up to $500,000 if there's 1,000 people. So please do donate. And I don't know what it's going to look like, what everything's going to look like. So it's something that check us out on our Facebook and Twitter at HSP_pod, because that's where you'll see everything. We'll be able to get that up. So we are condensed a little bit here. So let's jump into the Canucks side of things now, because there is some more BC Lions news, but we can get on to that next week when the old man is back and fully healthy. But Canucks made a big splash in headlines because the Canucks signed Elias Pettersson. Oh, no, sorry. Elias Pettersson, not Elias. The defenseman, the 2022 third-round pick. Lots of headlines going around. Elias Pettersson signs, and then not clarifying, which is kind of gross to me. But I did post up on the Inside the Rink website, insidetherink.com is where you can check that out, or at inside_the_rink on Twitter. Everything gets posted there. But the intention for Pettersson right now is to play in Sweden next year. He has been playing he played 43 games in the adult league in the Swedish first league, and had 14 where did he have 7 points and 6 penalty minutes while getting 13 games in the playoffs with no points. But that's not what he is. He's not a point getter. He is a defenseman who is great skating, long strides. He's someone who can, in my opinion, in 2 years, 3 years, depending on where things go, could be a great fill-in for what Tyler Myers was for this team. What OEL should have been for this team. Someone who is not a defensive liability, can get the puck out of our own end and get the likes of EP40 into the offensive zone. I've watched a few highlights of him, and the effortlessness in which he skates is the big thing that stands out to me. So he's decently physical. He knows what he needs to do. From all accounts, This is a deal well done. It sucks that he is going to play next year in Sweden, unless things change. And of course, things are always changing on that side of things. But it'd be really cool to get him into the AHL program and around the Canucks organization more. Now, he is going to be working out in Vancouver during the offseason, so he's going to get familiar with a lot of the guys there. I think he'd be better off in the AHL, but hey, I'm not an expert. That's just my 2 cents on where he should go. The Canucks have been pretty busy signing a bunch of players, and we've talked about a couple of them. I'm actually working on an article right now covering the kind of the prospect pipeline, the prospect pool that the Canucks have, because it's not that big. It's unfortunately quite condensed, but with it being as small as it is, it gives a chance to a lot of guys who I think could make impressions very quickly. It's something that is good because we're going to be able to take these guys like Vasily Podkolzin, who's been playing down the AHL this year and has been playing very well down the AHL. Nils Höglander, who was sent down partway through, and it sucks. They lost money by going down, even though they were up with the team last year and were, for the most part, 50-50 players last year. How the players themselves, it's got to suck. I think they did the right thing. I think for one of the very few times I can compliment Patrick Alvin and Jimmy Rutherford, because they saw that these guys needed more time in the oven. They needed more cooking to be daily NHL players. And it might suck for them personally. They might not enjoy it. I wouldn't like it if I got promoted, or demoted after being where I'm at now. It would suck. It would feel like I'm not respected and all that. And I get it. The reason I bring that up is because last night, the Abbotsford Canucks, in their first ever home playoff game, they won. They won 3-0 or 3. I believe it was 3-0 last night against the Bakersfield Condors. I'm just going to pull this up because I want to make sure I'm getting everything right. It was 3-0. 3-0 for the Abbotsford Canucks, in which Nils Höglander scored a goal, Jack Rathbone scored a goal, and the guys you want to be controlling the game, guys who should be in the NHL and want to be in the NHL, are the ones controlling the game. So you've got Nils Höglander, Noah Juleson, Max Sasson, Nils Höglander with the assists on Sasson's goal, Rathbone, Wolanin, all contributing on the scoreboard, which is great because that's what you need. You need these guys to be getting this valuable experience, so that way when you get into the NHL, you know what success feels like. You need to build an AHL team that has a base, and that base needs to be good. It needs to be good or great. It needs to be winning or competing for a Calder Cup every couple of years. Because I say every couple of years because you're going to pull from that. Look at where we got Alexander Burrows from. The Canucks, one of the probably fan favorites of all time, Alexander Burrows. He came up through when the team was in Winnipeg. The Manitoba Moose was the affiliate of the Canucks. And they had a good team. They had Bieksa on that team. They had Kessler on that team for a little bit. And they learned how to win. And someone like Alex Burrows, who came in and said, you know what? I'm not a star player. I'm not going to be a player that's going to score 30 goals in a season. He learned that. He understood his assignment, and he was a pest to play against. And when he got into the NHL, he was a pest to play against. And you know what he ended up doing? He ended up being a 30-goal scorer because not just did he know how to play professionally. He knew when there was a role assigned to him, he knew that he needed to do it. I'm sure, I don't remember this scenario because I was still in high school at the time. Just to age some of you out there. When the connection, the putting together of Alex Burrows and Sedins, I'm sure it felt weird because here you've got this chippy, get under your skin, get into the boards, dirty play. Probably most people would have said third liner at best, fourth liner on a good team. And he goes out to probably have a career of careers. And in my opinion, he should be in the Wall of Fame. That all started as an AHL. So the Abbotsford Canucks are in a 3-game series for the first round against the Bakersfield Condors in the playoffs. They're up 1-0, and they host all 3 games. So it's a very weird schedule because it's only a 3-game series. So all the 3 games are playing in Abbotsford. They're technically the home team for only game 1 and game 3 if there needs to be game 3. Game 2, they're technically the away team, even though it's in Abbotsford. So if you're in the area, go watch the games. They're exciting games. If you're not in Abbotsford and you want to watch the games, you can, for $30, you can get all of the Calder Cup playoffs. You can watch every single team, $30 right there. Everything's online. Everything's can stream to Roku, Apple TV, everything. It's a great system. Watch what they're doing. Watch what Trent Cull is doing. Culleton? What is his name? Trent Culleton, I think. I'm looking this up because I want to make sure. Jeremy Culleton. Watch what Jeremy Culleton is doing. He is doing things that, in my opinion, will make him the next great Canucks coach. Because if you look across the league, look at where the great coaches are coming from. They're not former assistants. They're not people who were an AHL coach for a short period of time and then became a power play specialist coach. No, it's the guys who are down in the AHL for 4, 5, 6 years. And then when they come up, they know how to control things because they've been a head coach. Having a guy be an assistant who players, I don't say disrespect, but don't have the same authority for as someone who conducts himself as a head boss. I think Jeremy Culleton is going to be that next guy for the Canucks. And Jimmy Rutherford and Patrick Alvin are doing the AHL right. They're going out, and these guys that they're signing are scoring goals, and are scoring goals in the WHL. Doesn't always translate to the AHL. But if you have enough lottery tickets, eventually you're going to win. And what they're doing is they're going out and finding free lottery tickets. They're picking them off the ground saying, yeah, here. If it doesn't cash, who cares? It was a cheap investment. I mean, for them, for the organization. I mean, for me, if I'm making $600,000 a year to play a sport, you know what? That's not too bad. It's the way that things need to be built. And it's the way Pittsburgh was built. It's the way good teams are built. You're built from the ground up. You need a good foundation. If you don't have that good foundation, and that's where my skeptic hopefulness for next year is coming into play. Watching Alvin, Rutherford, and talk on their post-game conference. It's nice. Having 3 guys who seem to be on the same page are focusing on one thing and getting it done. I feel like it hasn't been done since we've had Gillis and Lawrence and Vigneault. Like, it's been such a long time that the Canucks front office has had one goal. Now, is that goal wrong? I think so, because they're trying to make the playoffs next year. This is where their goal is. My goal for this organization, what every single organization should be looking at, is to how can we win a Stanley Cup? Period. End of story. if you're not in the game to win a Stanley Cup, why are you playing it? And it's something that I think a lot of players or a lot of fans don't understand. A lot of owners I don't think understand, because look at our owner. Look at the owner of the Vancouver Canucks. Francesco Aquilini and his family want to win now. They need the playoff revenue. Why do you need the playoff revenue? Do you need the playoff revenue, or do you just want playoffs? The goal should not be let's make the playoffs. The goal should be let's make a really, 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 really good team that will win a cup. And that's where my issue came with this year, last year, the offseason, that the moves we're making moves to win now. This team isn't good enough to win now. It's not. There's no way that this team, the team that the organization, that the ownership, that management has rubber stamped by their lack of doing things or their direct actions, is good enough to win. I've been watching, just before on the screen right behind me here, I was watching Toronto Maple Leafs. And yes, they might be the joke of the league. They might be, oh my God, they can't get past round one. Watch tonight's game. When I turned it off, I believe it was 5-1. I'm going to just pull up the score here. 6-1 in the third period against Tampa Bay. If the Canucks scored 6 goals against Tampa Bay in a 4-game series, I would be shocked. That's the difference in the level of a true contender to what we are. Now, yeah, we're going to get there. We're making the right moves. Patrick Allvin and not Jimmy Rutherford. He was an absent. Patrick Allvin and Rick Tocchet had their postseason availability. And asked directly, are you going to be using any buyouts? And Allvin looked right into the camera, answered the question, said, I do not anticipate using any buyouts. If we don't use a buyout, we're stuck with OEL because we're not trading him. He's got a no movement clause. No one's going to take him. We're stuck with Garland, Besser. Those are passable players, but we're stuck with OEL. Upon digging in, I'm Tyler Myers. I don't believe his bonus is paid until September. So it's not a July 1st trade. That's a mid-season trade that the organization is going to have to do. And it's just not good enough for an organization that, in theory, could have been 4th worst in the league, but decided to fire a coach and take a new coach bump by bringing in Rick Tocchet. It's absurd. I wish they would take a step back, and ownership let the GM take a step back to evaluate the situation, because it's just not going well. But that's enough of just me talking. I have who just joined the room, and I want to bring him on right now. Connor Doyle. Connor, welcome to the Hughes Sports Podcast. How the hell are you doing?
Jake, I'm doing fantastic. I always love hearing someone lament about the Vancouver Canucks, since they are the bane of the Los Angeles Kings' existence.
We might be the bane of your existence, but it's the only team that we still are a thorn in the side of. So,
yeah, it's true, but there's a lot of like there. We love ex-King Rick Tocchet. We love, as much as you hate to love him, Elias Pettersson. We've obviously been in trade rumors for Brock Besser for a long time. Not the trade rumors you want to hear, but it's always the bloggers and opinion articles. But hey, when you're a hockey fan, you look into anything and you expand on it, right? You see Brock Besser and LA Kings related, you're like, please make it happen.
Well, and you guys have longtime Vancouver veteran, I thought honestly was going to retire as a Canuck, Alex Edler, playing in a playoff series again, which is fantastic.
It's fantastic. I wish there was some type of, I don't think a cortisone shot does it, but I wish there was some foot speed there. He's not really getting due justice with being with Sean Dursey, who had a really great year last year, stepping in for Drew Doughty as the number one for the LA Kings. But he's been really accident and mistake prone this year. He was really Edmonton Oilers really capitalized on him and took advantage of him the last two games. We're lucky to get a win out of that. But Edler's on a D pair with someone that is that's just two guys with no foot speed. And at least Edler has size and the veteran experience. So not doing him any favors. I think he was excellent last year with Matt Roy. I think he is an excellent Vancouver Canuck. I think he's your all-time leading goal scorer for a defenseman, correct? Until Quinn Hughes takes it over in what 3 years?
I think Quinn Hughes at this rate, I think Quinn Hughes is going to take it over sometime next year.
Yeah, I mean, that
like the guys, and it just goes to show how good Quinn Hughes is, because Edler was a staple on that lineup for I think 7 years.
Yeah, he was
PP1 quarterback,
2 President's Trophies, a conference final. A Stanley Cup final, which I know there were some burning cars in Vancouver about. So, a lot of good work there. I mean, gosh, that franchise. I mean, you had it made. I mean, I think Kessler, another king killer, being your 2A. If you haven't heard Spitting Chicklets, he's on he does a really good talk about when he first joined the Vancouver Canucks. I always found Ryan Kessler to be a very interesting individual in the hockey world, and I think you guys had a great team. But yeah, Alex Edler I don't know if maybe he'll get his number retired in the rafters. I know everyone gives the LA Kings a lot of snuff about them having so many retired numbers and statues, but I can see Edler being a retired number 2.
See, like, I understand the flack that the Canucks get. Mm-hmm. We have a handful of numbers retired, and we have this many Stanley Cups. We've got 0. Zilch.
Pavel Bure? Is he retired?
Pavel Bure did get retired, yes.
Okay, that would make the most entire sense.
Yeah, Pavel Bure. We have Bure, the Sedins, both of them, obviously. Yep. Trevor Linden and Stan Smeel.
Daniel Sedin is by far one of the nicest human beings I've met in the hockey world, being out in LA. Yes, everyone always gets associated with celebrity land. You really don't bump into him, but as a lifeguard working at this hotel up in Palos Verdes, we got to bump into him a lot. He'd come in the summer, and really nice guy. Really happy that the Sedins could be working with the franchise now, maybe not at an executive level, but just, special advisor. At least you don't have a Mark Bergevin. Nothing against him, but when Mark Bergevin, I give him a lot of credit because he pretty much built a team in 2020-21 that went to the Cup final that you look on paper that you just go, there's no way they go to the final this year. And
no, if you pulled that team to diehard hockey fans and you said, laid it next to probably Tampa Bay or even the Flames or Edmonton that year, out of the North Division for the wonky COVID season, and you say, which team makes the finals? I don't think there's a single person who's looking at Montreal and saying that's the one.
Oh, exactly. But you know what? God bless that man. He did not go after and re-sign Philippe Deneau, and that might be one of the best free agent pickups, arguably, in the last half decade in the NHL. You're talking about a premier shutdown to centerman that is always going to get Selke votes. He can chip in offense. You put him around 2 complementary wingers. He's excellent. He was excellent with Tatar and Gallagher in Montreal, and he's been excellent with Arvidsson and Moore in LA. Broke his career high in points. Last year, he broke his career high in goals, almost doubled it. So, I mean, he's been an absolute stud for the LA Kings. I've got to thank Bergevin for not re-signing him, how he was not a more coveted free agent. It's just one of those things where Rob Blake does not get enough credit as well as a GM, bringing in a guy like Victor Arvidsson, Alex Edler, Philippe Deneau, and then making a big splash and getting Kevin Fiala this last offseason for arguably one of their second best defensive prospect. I think we all forget about Brant Clark dominating the OHL and leading all Canadian Hockey League scoring in the Memorial in the OHL playoffs with, I think, 17 points entering yesterday in just 5 games. It's been pretty good.
Been pretty good. I mean, he's if Connor Bedard was on a team that wasn't built for failure,
Yeah,
I
true.
think he'd probably be second.
Virginia. Well, he was second, but I think they, like you said, they got bounced in
the first round.
They got bounced in the first round, but Brandt Clark was still leading over him. But of course, yes. But this is a defenseman we're talking about. The Kings are just kind of like how, I don't know if you've been having your podcast. I don't know if you've been checking in, but like the New Jersey the Rangers game. Spoiler alert. If anyone that is in my bracket challenge listening to this, I did pick the Rangers to beat the New Jersey Devils. I just don't think they're there yet. You can make the same argument for the Kings. You're probably not seeing the best the Kings have to offer yet. I'm sure we'll go into that in a little bit, Jake. But when you have such a pipeline, like the Devils have shown, they have 2 number 1 picks at center, just like Buffalo. They have 2 number 1 picks on defense. You have a lot left to show. We haven't even seen Brandt Clark. We haven't really seen Akil Thomas. We had, as much as he's been backed up a little bit with injuries, we haven't seen Alex Turcotte. You've kind of seen Samuel Fagemo. There's a lot to like. There's a lot more coming too with this team.
Well, and that's a big thing. This year, it really feels like there's a lot of teams that were solidified into the playoffs. So you have like your Edmonton Oilers, your Vegas Golden Knights, as much as I hate that, the Avalanche. You've got on the East, that was just a crazy year where if there was ever a sort of crossover rule, I don't think any West teams would be in because the East, especially the Metro, was so competitive this year. But you've got new teams on the up. You've got the LA Kings. You've got the Kraken. You've got the Devils. And I think the Devils, especially in the first game, my roommate is a Rangers fan. So if you hear any yelling through the walls, that's why.
I mean, it should be a wrap by now. It's 3-1, but keep going.
Oh, yeah. But we watched the first part of game 1. And I looked at him early in the first period, probably halfway through. And I was like, did the Devils remember that they had a game today? Like, it felt like they were skating at half speed.
I have this cousin who played hockey over at Arizona State, and he has this really bad habit of listing players, but always mentioning, but they're American, because it's such a Canadian dominant sport. So whenever he's like, Jack Hughes, man, he's American, but it's like New York, Patrick Kane, Chris Kreider, American. They're kind of killing you right now. So yeah, I'm sure your roommate's having a great time with this. Trying to make it out to a game next year, visiting my cousin to go to MSG, but on to I know we want to talk about this first round series, and I know I don't want to pull the rug out from under your feet, but I don't think Vancouver's playing in the postseason. Last time I checked,
they're not. So unfortunately,
which is crazy because they had such a tear. They went on such a tear down the season. They went on a tear last year, and they picked up Bruce Boudreau as a coach. So
and that's why as a Canucks fan, I have this guarded skepticism about next year, where I'm like, look, I saw great things. I'm excited, but I saw great things last year under Boudreau. And the year after that, or the year before that, it was Travis Green, and he turned things around at the end of the year.
It's true. And it's been pretty cyclical for sure.
Is it now a core problem? Was it Bo Horvat? Ooh. I don't think so. I think Bo Horvat is a consummate professional, even though his comments right before the playoffs against the Canucks,
I
saw those.
Yeah,
I loved it. We covered it last week. I loved it. You don't get. It's great for the game.
Yeah.
Imagine if he didn't walk it back, and I think they're still going to try to play up it. His first game back in Vancouver, it's going to be the talk of the town. It should be, in my opinion, a Saturday night game because those are huge in Vancouver. And you build up all the media talk about Bo Horvat said the New York is better, Long Island is better than Vancouver.
I do recall that. Didn't he already have a game back in Vancouver, or he scored?
No. Vancouver went to the island about 3 days after the trade or something like that. 7 days after the trade.
And Bolivier had didn't he score as well? So it was kind of like
they were both like, hey, we know how to score against these goalies.
Exactly.
Because the Canucks sadly aren't in the playoffs. Your team is the LA Kings, and they're facing the closest Canadian team to me, so I guess I have to cheer for them, the Edmonton Oilers.
Yeah. It's been something we've expected covering the LA Kings this year. It's exactly what we expected. I think it was just as we picked up steam through the trade deadline and even prior. it was something that just was coming to a halt. I think we were looking at hopefully maybe, getting that number one spot. But as soon as Fiala took the knee from Nick Cogliano in Colorado, it kind of started this just like a ongoing carousel to the injury, to the IR list. And, Gabe Velarde, Alex Edler, Mikey Anderson. So when you lose 4 key guys down the stretch, they were on a 10-0-2 run. One of those losses to Vancouver. It just really slowed them down. And in Vegas and Edmonton just did not slow down. And Edmonton legitimately had a shot at winning the Pacific due to regulation wins, but I think Vegas got that extra point from Seattle. They just swept Seattle those last 2 games, sealed it. But Edmonton is a fearsome foe. I think from covering them and trying to be a neutral media and journalist myself, amateur, whatever you want to call it, I think that whoever wins this series will win the West. I think I'm pretty confident about that because Edmonton superstars are unlike any other superstars in the West. They really managed to, patch up their weakness with getting Matthias Ekholm. That contract's not going to age well, in my opinion. It's just $6 million. He's 33 years old. And he's signed for 4 or 5 years. It's not going to age well, but if they win right now, it doesn't matter.
I was going to say the window for Edmonton is right now.
The windows are you're 8 years into the Connor McDavid experience, right? And you're dealing with the best player on the planet. It's someone who, I love Anze Kopitar. One of my player before that was, Pavel Datsyuk, right? But even those 2 players are not even on the same level on the offensive capability. We've never seen a player like this where they just look like everyone else is playing pond hockey. He's ridiculous.
When he turns it on, and I saw it in the first 2 periods of the Oilers-Kings game, when he turns it on and to skate past someone, I don't think there's a skater in the NHL, in the world, that could stop him. Whether it be physically stopping him or trying to keep pace. When he winds up through the neutral zone, and you can just see he starts to protect the puck and comes through. I can't remember who it was on the defenseman.
For LA in game 1?
In game 1.
When he drew the 5-on-3 penalty?
Yes.
Okay, so that was against Drew Doughty and Mikey Anderson. He cut through, but it's probably the only time he can do it because McDavid, you haven't seen him do that because the Kings play a 1-3-1. Which is another bane of our existence because it's a good thing because it shuts teams down, their superstars down from cutting through, like we're saying about McDavid. But, we haven't seen a team won with the 1-3-1. I think Tampa Bay Lightning in 2011, they got the farthest. But what you're saying on that play is he's able to do that because the Kings are down short and you're not able to run a 1-3-1 on the PK. So he was able to cut through the ice. And like all modern day NHL teams for the power play, it's the drop back pass. So you have speed coming through. And maybe Barzal, Kreider, Aho. I mean, I don't think of it. I can't, Jordan Kyrou. Like, I can't think of any other player that is on a drop back pass on the power play. I don't see anyone else coming through with that much speed other than Connor McDavid, Dylan Larkin. No. Like, it doesn't matter. Like, we do it with Kempe and it still looks, Kempe's extremely fast, but it still is not the same. But yes, he made 2 world-class defensemen look pretty silly. And luckily Korpisalo, who we will continue on to talk about, he's been a huge storyline of the series because the one area that I think the Kings edge the Oilers is goaltending. Stuart Skinner's a fairly untested rookie goaltender, 24 years old. He's been playing great for Edmonton, but his, margins for error are very, very slim, and he hasn't looked the sharpest. Don't know if you saw the Gabe Velarde goal last night. I mean, obviously it was gorgeous, but that's a goal he's got to stop.
Yeah. And I mean, again, Stuart Skinner's been playing great. He's never played playoff hockey.
Oh yeah.
And there's a difference. Like, just watching the games, you can tell that the plays are that much faster, that much harder. And you're seeing, I think, in my opinion, the depth of the Kings is actually better than the depth of the 3rd and 4th lines of Edmonton. Because
if you want to call it the 3rd or 4th lines, I mean, I think Janmark got injured from blocking Kempe's shot in game 1. So they've been running what they've been doing a lot of the years, the 11 forwards and 7 defensemen. The first goal Edmonton scored last night, Draisaitl was centering Derek Ryan and Costin. So you have your bona fide superstar centering your 4th line, also centering, Kane and Yamamoto. It's tricky to match up against.
Well, and it goes to show, like, you have the superstars, and Doughty's a superstar. You've got oh God, what's his name? Kempe and Kopitar. Mm-hmm. But they're not the level of Draisaitl and McDavid. they're also not making the money of Draisaitl and McDavid. And I think it's the same issue that Toronto has.
That's why Toronto is just like Edmonton. They're in that window, and you're probably going to see if they don't do anything with this window. Even though, by the way, side note, love the way Ryan O'Reilly is playing right now. I've always been a huge fan of him. I love Selke guys, but I'll get back on. Yeah, that's another team that the guys make too much money. Look what happened in Boston. Obviously, they're older, but guys come back like Krejci and Bergeron and have team-friendly deals where they make like 2.5. And look at the team they built when you take pay cuts. When you have two guys making over 12, what Draisaitl and McDavid are both in the 11 or 12 range, and it's also the McDavid effect. Zach Hyman is a darn good hockey player, but you're telling me that he's going to go put up 30 plus goals every single year without being on a team with McDavid? I mean, how many of those, was it 19 of those out of his 32 were on the power play? Those are really good numbers for the power play. So that's a McDavid effect, because the next time Zach Hyman goes into arbitration or a contract negotiation, he can put those stats forward, and Edmonton Oilers are going to have to pay him. They're going to have to. It's the McDavid effect.
Well, and any superstar has that effect. But when there's superstars and then there's Connor McDavid,
it's true.
He drags us. Like, I always look back at the Sedins on a line with Alex Burrows.
Oh yeah,
because on most teams during that time, Alex Burrows is probably a really great third or fourth liner. I just talked about it earlier. He's a great third or fourth liner. He's pesky. He's got speed. He's able to get in there. His hands are good, but he doesn't have that top end talent.
Mm-hmm.
But the Sedins grabbed him and said, "You're our guy. You sit in front of the net. You learn how we like the passes, and you make it work." And he scored 30 goals.
Yeah. That's actually a really, really good comparison. Always loved Burrows, a good pest. Obviously, one of the game changer, franchise changing series for the Kings is the 2012 playing Vancouver. So I know Burrows very well. I think it's at the end of game 1. Mike Richards took a run at Burrows with like a minute left while we were up. So I think that just changed the tempo in the scene. But always a big Alex Burrows fan. If you go on our Instagram, you can see that I'm such a big fan of him that he's on my background with Lucic sticking his fingers in his face, because that's Hall of Fame moment for hockey. Never gonna happen. You just don't bite the gentleman's hands. You just can't do that to Bergeron. He's the gentleman. So, but this series, Jake, it's as a Kings fan from the Kings perspective, you got the split on the road. That's what you need to do. Yep. Korpisalo has been absolutely lights out. But what's concerning is these starts. I think they got to this 2-minute mark of the first period and they still hadn't got a shot on goal. I think it was 10-0, and then by the second period, obviously we stepped it up, but it was 15-3 at one point until we really started stepping up. But give credit to this Kings team for hanging in there, being able to match up pretty decently well with their top 4 demon against their superstars, those 2 top lines. But they've been getting pretty manhandled and bullied. But that game 1 comeback has really set a tone that this team is different from last year. Victor Arvidsson, he might not be the guy for Nashville, but he's really stepped in his game. I think Matthias Ekholm was interviewed the other day after the Oilers win, and they're just saying how he played 7 years with Victor Arvidsson in Nashville, and he's really seen the dynamic changes in his game. He's definitely a more well-rounded player. Obviously, Ekholm has a little bit more size than a 5'9" player, but this team has an opportunity to go home and take care of business. They were an excellent home team, especially in the second half of the season. I believe they were in the second half of the season the 3rd best home team in the NHL. They don't give up much at home. They're going to be able to provide matchups, and hopefully they can stay away from that Darnell Nurse-CC pairing for the top line. That's really hurt them. Also give a huge shout out to Evan Bouchard. He's having a heck of a series for Edmonton. He's obviously their best prospect. Philip Broberg has not really gotten the time of day. I mean, he's their 7th defenseman when they do the 11-7 rotation, but this is a series that I have going 7 for Edmonton. I know that might be a shocker, but without Kevin Fiala, they really don't have a dynamic third line because, like you said, the Oilers are really a 2-line team, and that Bukestad move really solidified their third line more of a checking role. But they don't have 3 or 4 scoring lines. They have 2 extremely good scoring lines, but they have a good checking line. But their fourth line is kind of piecemeal right now.
Yeah, and again, you talked about it. They every now and again they'll run that 11-7. So you've got Draisaitl double shifting, or you've got Connor McDavid, who wants to double shift. Like he's out there more than anyone should be. I'm just looking at the stats. He only 10-second different from Draisaitl in the last game.
But who has the points? McDavid's been held to a point in these 2 games, has been held off the score sheet at 5-on-5, but Draisaitl on 5 points, 2 games.
But that's also like Connor McDavid, held to 1 point, but that's when the Kings don't have last change. You guys aren't getting the matchups.
It's true. I mean, I don't know if you follow The Athletic either, but The Athletic came out with just a good article recently from Dom Lichuskin about how home ice has not really, mattered. I think there's a lot of splits. Dallas lost at home, Vegas lost at home, Colorado lost at home. So you have a lot of these. Does home ice really matter? And I will always, I have a good sports group that I talk with that is all about baseball, basketball. Well, home ice advantage or home court advantage only really matters in hockey. You could have loud fans, that's great, but hockey's last change. I put out. I'm in Vancouver back in the day, and I put out Mike Richards, or I put out my top scoring line in Kopitar. You can put out Ryan Kessler, and then I put out Stoll or Colin Fraser. You can go put out the Sedin twins because you know that you're just going to hem them. Exactly. Right now, with like you said, with home change, our fourth line goes out there. They got caved in. They see Dursey and Edler go out there. Guess what? McDavid hops over the boards, and he's going to burn both of those every single day of the week.
The big thing is, Korpisalo, which I think is the move of the trade deadline. I don't think there's enough conversation about it. I think Korpisalo, trading for Korpisalo, it was something that I didn't see coming.
Mm-hmm.
But I think shored up the goaltending position in LA better than any other move. Like, there was some big names that moved, but did they make that big of an impact? Bo Horvat moved. He hasn't done that much with the Islanders.
To be fair, Barzal got hurt. When they were together, they were dynamic.
Yes.
But I definitely like picking your brain on that, because I don't know if you were following the whole. What I'd learned is that Bill Armstrong of the Coyotes was trying to play the Edmonton GM and Rob Blake. He was trying to play them to try to see what the answer is, because Rob Blake was trying to go get Chychrun in a Velmelka deal, and I liked Velmelka as well. But Korpisalo I'd follow him back to his Columbus days. It was 5 overtime loss against Tampa Bay in 2020. I mean, this is a guy that was holding, I think, a .967 career postseason save percentage in his 9 starts. So, I mean, that was a huge ad. And I think Phoenix Copley deserves some recognition if we're talking about goalies. He saved the Kings season. He showed that with average to above average goaltending. Would he finish 26, 5, and 4, something of that nature? Those are ridiculous numbers. Those are insane numbers. And I love Copley, but Copley is not an elite goaltender in this league. He's been a career backup. He hasn't played more than 37 games in a season in 5 years, right? That's 5 years. He's played 37 games, and he's come in and he's just been a calming presence. Quick and Cal could not get it done. And another thing I want to remind fans is that Quick had never mentioned that he was going to retire. And so if he was going to hit free agency, Rob Blank was going to lose him for nothing. So he made a hard move. But like you said, Korpisalo and Gavrikov, it's paid dividends.
It's paid huge. Like I pulled up Korpisalo's stats here, including the 2 games in his career playoffs. He's a .937 save percentage.
Got it. Okay. Prior to this series, I think he was up there, but yes, I think he's still that's still fantastic.
He's still .937. That's winning a Stanley Cup percentage.
Yeah, 100%.
That's Vasilevsky numbers in the playoffs.
Yep.
And he was on a very terrible Columbus team. So I'm sure he saw that trade come through, like that. He saw the phone call, picked up, and heard he was going to a team that was competing and in the playoffs. And he was like, let's go.
Yep. They were flown out on a private jet, him and Gavrikov, and with their families. And they had I think Gavrikov said in his interview that when they flew in that, like, they had 2 sedans or SUVs pull up to the airport. They just had keys on the dash. They had their places all set up. Like, they got the LA treatment for sure, because Rob Blake obviously would like to keep at a minimum one of them. I would love to run Korpisalo. Also, another savvy move not talked about is, Rob Blake went out and got Eric Portillo from, I believe, University of Michigan. So, I mean, we have a possible future goalie star. I mean, Buffalo has a ton of goalies, but I hope that Rob Blake is able to sign one of them. Gavrikov has been playing absolutely phenomenal against McDavid. I think in the second half, once the post-trade deadline, they've been one of the best D pairings in the league. Matt Roy does not get enough love. And him with Gavrikov has just been an absolute steady pair. But another guy, Gavrikov, you wouldn't have known until Zach Werenski goes down for Columbus. He steps into kind of a number one role, and we saw it with Durzi last year. But Durzi just I sometimes I don't understand, because he played a number one role last year. Now he's getting kind of more sheltered minutes. He's on a third D pair, and he's suffering, to say the least.
Well, no, do you think that's part of like a sophomore slump, overthinking the game for where he's at?
I only believe in a sophomore slump if it's like the opposite. Like if you entered the league, you had a good time, you had good minutes, you had a good production from, sheltered role. A lot of new guys get sheltered roles. You get sheltered minutes, offensive zone starts, maybe some neutral zone starts. But he was playing he's swapped out. He played Drew Doughty minutes. He was our number one guy. And then now it's the opposite. Now he's getting sheltered minutes, and it's like you're struggling. So it's kind of the most confusing thing, because I believe the sophomore slump is when you have to expand on your role from you did last year. So
yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, but what he's doing this year has just been really confusing. He put up 30-plus points, but he's minus 11, minus 11 or minus 9. So he's kind of struggled. Plus minus is not always the best indicator, but then again, look at McDavid. McDavid's a 153 points. He's a plus 22. Anze Kopitar had 74 points. He's a plus 20, 21. It's a difference between the way you approach the game.
Yeah, well, and not just that, but you look at Connor McDavid in the defensive zone.
Yeah, the defensive impact is not the same.
It's not the same, but 128 points. You're never going to turn that down. It's finding a balance, and I think players like McDavid don't need to find that balance, because they're constantly in the offensive zone. They're constantly scoring. They're putting up points. They're constantly beating people. But smarter players, the guys like Edler, the older guys who Tyler Myers is always the one that comes to mind, who, as his foot speed has slowed down, he's learned how to play better positionally. And Kopitar, I've seen a lot of that in the last couple of years, where he's gone from being very offensively focused with defensive upside to being very defensively focused with offensive upside.
Sorry, I don't know if you know this, but do you know how many penalty minutes Kopitar has all year?
No.
4. He's taken 2 penalties all year.
And he played the entire season. He wasn't injured.
He played all 82 games. I think the stat was it goes back almost 280 games where he's taken more than 4 penalties. So yeah, he's a leady being front runner. I'd say Braden Point's right there, because I think Braden Point has 12 penalty minutes, but he got in a fight. So realistically, Braden Point. So Braden Point probably not going to win the Lady Byng because he got in a fight, but I see 2 penalties. Kopitar's taken 2 penalties, and Todd McKellen talks about it. It's always in the right position. You take penalties being out of position. Yeah. Kopitar's is always in the right position. Do I like a matchup between him and McDavid right now? Probably not. That's why Phil Deneau's taking it on, because Kopitar doesn't really have the same foot speed. He's got 2 pretty fast guys on his wings right now.
Well, and again, it comes with age, right? As soon as you get up into I'm just 30. So once they get into senior citizen age in the NHL at 30, your foot speed loses. You need to learn how to adapt. And that's what the star players do.
Yeah.
And yeah.
Oh, believe me, I'm knocking at that door, and I'm at school over at UCLA, and some of these kids are talking about staying up till midnight to do homework, and I'm like, 8:30 bedtime, maybe an melatonin, done. So yeah, I can only imagine for a hockey player at 35, but his level of consistency, he's a career 0.85 guy in the regular season, 0.88 in the playoffs. I mean, his level of consistency against the competition he's played against, John Rosen touched on it in his form report. He's a first ballot Hall of Famer. He's been an absolute joy to watch. And what better than to have your future cornerstone center playing on a line with him? So,
it's the way that a team needs to be built.
Thank you. Because, going back to days of playing, NHL 16, NHL 17, you draft a guy at franchise. He might be a center. You put him on the wing next year, number 1. You let him develop. I was always against it. I don't always believe that NHL, a video game, translates, but it's the first time I've ever seen Rob Blake and the coaching staff, do something like this, where because Kupari, even Byfield, when he first came in, it's you're going to play 4th line center and you're going to work your way up, right?
Yeah.
I feel it's we're going to use your size and length on the wing, and you're going to play on the top line with Kopitar. It's okay.
Great.
Yeah.
The nice thing is Kopitar gets kicked out of a face-off. You still get some face-offs.
Yeah.
They're minimal, but you do get some.
And QB's not even besides Brant Clark, but QB and Brant Clark are not even the guys I'm excited about right now. It's the guy breaking out. It's Gabe Vilardi. Gabe Vilardi, 2017, if he didn't have the back injury, he was being talked as, with Heischer and Morgan Frost as a top 3 pick. I mean, he fell to 11th. I mean, this guy is a game breaker. He came in first game, hadn't played since March 26th against the Blues. And he scores that goal last night, coming into his first playoff game since last year. I mean, he only played 2 last year. He's dynamic. He's not not foot speed guy, but guess what? You got length, you got size, and he's shifty. His hands.
He sees the ice. He knows where he's going, what he's doing.
Yep.
And it's something that I've been paying a lot more attention to since Elias Pettersson kind of popped onto the scene. Guy's not big. He's not lanky, but people can't touch him because he's 5 steps ahead of them. And the great hockey players, their bodies will come. Like Petey this year was a lot bigger than he was when he first started. He doesn't look like the alien.
Yeah.
But Vilardi is going to be the exact same way in my eyes. His vision and his thought process is already at an elite level. His body's just catching up.
He is. If I had to make a comparison to like a player who's kind of around his ears, he's almost. I almost find him almost exactly like Pierre-Luc Dubois. It's just I think Vilardi's just better on the boards. I think his board work is elite. I think his defensive impact is elite. Vilardi's just going to be a very special player, and right now he's getting looks at center. He was getting looks at center for a large portion of the third period, right? So, I mean, if you start developing a can't even have Turcotte in the picture right now due to the injuries, but like a Byfield, Vilardi, and Kupari down the middle right now, that's what you're growing on. You're growing on 3 first-round picks that 2 of them are arguably elite. Byfield is one of those bigger body guys that is going to take time to develop, right? Hey, what if they called Tage Thompson a bust? I think he did all right this year.
I think he proved some people wrong.
Yeah, I think the Ryan O'Reilly trade worked out for both parties. St. Louis ended up winning a cup, but my goodness, the talent that is being stockpiled in Buffalo is second to none. So, in case you know,
every year for the past 3 years, I'm like, this is going to be the year they break out. This is going to be the year they break out. And
they were. I felt like they had something this year. I think they need a couple more veterans on the blue line and maybe some insulation. I like Kyle Okposo, but like the new culture, there's going to be a new generation moving in, and like I said, 2 first-round picks, like 2 number 1 picks on the blue line, and Owen Power and Dahlin, and you got Mittelstadt, you got Peyton Krebs, Dylan Cousins. I mean, Alex Tuck, Tage Thompson, Jeff Skinner still there. I mean, they were a very fun team to watch this year for sure.
Oh, so much fun.
Yeah.
Now, as we're wrapping up here, you said you had the Oilers winning in 7.
I do have the Oilers winning in 7. I mean, and that was if maybe even Fiala came back. It doesn't look like he's been walking around with a brace on his knee from some reports. But even if Fiala was in, I had Edmonton in 7. It's a coin flip. Edmonton is I can't even say they're a very well-built team, to be honest with you, just because
they're a top-heavy team.
They are very Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl heavy team. They have some nice pieces around them. I get it, but the depth of like a Carolina is not there, right?
The depth of the Rangers. Look at the Rangers.
Exactly.
Your third line is 3 top picks.
Exactly. But still, with being how Jay Woodcroft does it, because we haven't even talked about is just the fact that when he gets in trouble like last year, Game 6 and Game 7, then Draisaitl ends up being on a wing with McDavid, and there's no defensive pair in the league that can stop that over the course of 60 minutes. So, I'm going to stand by. I hope that the Kings can make a good licking out of it. So it's not like a 4 or 5, obviously can't be a 4 now, but not a 5 or a 6. Hopefully they can make it, a series worth, being like, hey, we hung in there. But I stand by it. I think Edmonton 7, and I think Edmonton goes all the way to the Stanley Cup Finals and maybe gets the slap on their tushy from Boston or some East Coast juggernaut.
Who else you got coming out of the West? Who do you have winning the Winnipeg Vegas series? Because I think that's
I have just because I think Mark Stone is a top 3 winger in this league, because you have him as the best 2-way winger, you have Panarin, and you have Pastrnak, right? You have 3 different types of wingers. They have arguably the best responsible 2-way winger since Marian Hossa. I picked Vegas in 5. Winnipeg is making me look bad. They're going to be on though tonight, so we'll be able to check it out. Probably coming up here shortly. I have Vegas in 5. That's probably not going to be mostly accurate. I had Dallas in 6. I had Colorado in 5, which Seattle's Prove me wrong. I think in my conference final, I have Dallas and Edmonton right now, and I have Edmonton.
I think we're very similar. I think I swapped. I had the Kings in 7 because I think
nice, good man.
They have 4 lines that they can run, and that to me is huge. As much as I hate to say it, the Golden Knights, just because you can't count them out as much as I want to, and
the depth. They have the depth, and honestly, as much as like I going back to like 2018, a little bit less immature Connor Doyle, I could not stand that they swept us, and probably one of the lowest scoring sweeps of all time. 7 goals total for the Knights in 4 games, 3 for the Kings in 4 games. It was brutal to watch.
10 goals in 1 series. It's insane.
10 goals in 4 games from both teams. Brutal.
And
the over and under of that.
In the last 2 games, there's been what 11. How many goals? My brain is not doing math right now.
With Vegas?
No, with LA and Edmonton.
LA, it's been oh my goodness, it's 4-3. So 7 goals to 6 goals. It's 7-6.
So yeah, 13 goals total
in 2 games, which is good pace. Good pace, right? You're not last year when we beat them 4-3 in their house, the next game was 6-0, and then they came home to LA and they lost 8-2. So in 2 games it was 14-2. So trying to reverse that script a little bit. But yeah, those are my picks out the West. I always like to ride a good. I think Jake Ottinger is the best goaltender in the West, so you always got to ride an elite goaltender. Joe Pavelski injury kind of hurts. Robertson is an absolute star. I always a big fan of Jamie Benn. He's guy's a stud. That whole team. I like Miro Heiskanen. I think he's a dark horse Norris candidate every year. Really like that team. If Colorado, in my opinion, never addressed their center depth, they never addressed Kadri leaving. So you just can't. JT Compher's been doing a heck of a job as a second line center this year, but that's not Nazem Kadri. That's 89 points out of your lineup. So same thing.
I think Colorado went about it the right way. They didn't try to replace him with another star. They
let him grow.
Compher, here you go. You've earned second line. Let's see what we got here.
Yeah, no, you're right. So those are my picks. I really hope your bracket is right. I know a lot of people have picked the Kings to go all the way, and I do stand by it. If the Kings do win, though, I see them coming out of the West. I mean, they're playing the 2 hardest guys to play in the West. You know, you think Phil Deneau, after playing against McDavid, is going to have problems playing against Carlson or Stone or Eichel? No, Stone's not a center, but I just don't see it. You're playing against McDavid every night, and then it's like you're taking a downgrade. It's 2014 all over again. You played Chicago in the conference final, and that was like the Stanley Cup Finals. You go to New York, and you go up 3-0 in the first 3 games. So it's one of those for me. I think that it's all downhill from here unless you get to the final. Then you got to play an East Coast juggernaut, which I think
I think coming out of the East, I think whatever team limps into the finals, because I think that's what's going to happen, is going to be at a disadvantage versus the West.
I never, and I'm sure you knew this was coming, but I never stand behind a President's Trophy winning team just because I think it is cursed. But if they get Bergeron back, this is the best team I've seen built, and it's not just a best team just built of random. Like it's guys with pedigree. It's guys that have been there too. It's a scary team. That decor alone: Orlov, McAvoy, Lindholm, Grizzlick, or Carlo, and it's Forbert and who's the last guy? But like they're scary. Ex-King Derek Forbert. Wow. His funny story is we saved him in the expansion draft and then let Brandon McNabb be exposed, and Vegas took him. So crazy how things work. Crazy.
Well, I appreciate the time because
Jake, anytime. I'd love obviously we love talking puck out here in somewhat sunny Southern California, but
it's got to be nicer than here. We got snow all day.
Wow.
I think it was 32 degrees Fahrenheit. I have to do the conversion, but
I actually, because of the car accident today, I wonder, because I did get checked out. I am a little concussed, so I am pushing through this. I should be wearing a dark visor. I wonder, like in Vancouver, I could even go outside, all the bright light. I mean, wow. But yeah, don't like the snow very much. But once again, thanks for having me, man. I appreciate the heads up, and always willing to talk puck, and especially LA Kings. And Vancouver's got a bright future on their hands. Hopefully, if they take care of it right, and
that's a big thing, taking care of it right. So
taking care of it right, harness it. You got a small flame. You got a little, Kindle. You got to keep breathing some life into it. Make that fire going.
Exactly. Just keep rubbing it, and hopefully
exactly. Hopefully it's not a locker room thing.
Now, Connor, where can people find you if they do not know who you are? If this is their first interaction, hearing your beautiful voice.
Wow. Thank you for the compliment. You can follow me on Lords of the Rinks on Twitter. I run that with another Jacob, not as I mean, if he's listening, I don't care, but not as good as this Jacob here. But Jacob Mandel and Connor Doyle, we both run Lords of the Rinks. We cover the LA Kings via Inside the Rink, both at UCLA, both U.S. Navy veterans that just like talking puck.
Well, I appreciate the time. I appreciate your service.
Yeah,
even if it's not for my country, it takes a special type of person to protect.
Absolutely, but we all know that Canada is the better country, anyways.
We just haven't won a cup in forever.
Best tweet I've seen the last 10 years was recently with, and I want to cut this off. I know you got to go, but
no, it's fine.
It was a tweet that said, all you guys suck for talking smack about having to hear the Canadian national anthem, but think about the regular season. There's more U.S. teams. So if you go to a Canadian game, you have to hear that all the time. So I was like, wow, it hit me different because I do go to games because in the military, when you're on base and they do colors in the morning, you have to salute to every single nation that's there. And in San Diego, we had like 6 nations there. So by the third nation, you're like shaking. Your arm's starting to. You're like, oh man, you don't plan that muscle. You don't do a workout like that. But Jay, thank you for having me. Go enjoy the Vegas game, man.
Yes, I'm sure we will have you on again because it was a pleasure to talk to you again. Everyone, go drop a follow at Lords of the Rinks. Go check out his work on Inside the Rink. Check out my work on Inside the Rink. It's a growing site, and drop comments. Tell us what we're doing right. Tell us what you like, and tell us what you don't like. Thank you so much, Connor. I will put you in the timeout room. Thank you so much, everyone, for dropping by. I do appreciate you guys listening. If you're listening on a podcast, if you're listening on live right now, hit that like button, subscribe, drop a comment. If you're listening on any other platform, follow us, like us. If there's the ability, leave us a 5-star rating. We do appreciate those. Have yourself a wonderful night, and I will see you guys here next Thursday. Peace.